Hello, this is the Stuff I Heard podcast, and I'm your host, Joshua Peak. Let's kick it off, shall we? Hey everybody, today happens to be the last day of July 2019. It is a warm day outside, very warm here in South Carolina. I got a couple things going on. In the last podcast I mentioned watching a show on Amazon Prime called The Boys about superheroes, and if it was a real thing like in everyday life, how they wouldn't be altruistic and good, that some of them have flaws and they're just like regular people except with powers. So you gotta think, with that kind of power it goes to your head and you tend to do some awful things. Well, the show was great, okay? I mentioned that in the last episode. After I got done watching that show, I talked about Orange is the New Black had come out with the last season, season 7. They were going to wrap it up and say that's it, okay? So I got to watch season 7. I mentioned I was going to watch it slowly. I was like, I want to savor this. This is how I got introduced to Netflix. This is what I started watching years ago. My dad was like, here, check this show out. My sister was talking about it. I heard lots of people mentioning what a great show it was. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Well, I talked about how I was going to take my time and savor it. It's sort of like, when you make yourself a really good meal. Like, let's say I'm going to grill a steak, okay? And I go to the store and I get a steak and I bring it home and I take it out and I clean it and dry, pat it dry, and then I make some coarse cuts through it like a tic-tac-toe pattern, and then I rub olive oil all over it and all the little crevices and stuff, and then I sit it on a plate and I season it just right, and then I sit it in the fridge and let it sit there and congeal for about 12 hours in the fridge, and then when I get it out, I'm gonna make some mushrooms with it. I go through this whole process of caring for this steak and loving the steak and thinking, oh, this is going to be delicious and I can't wait to get that bite, and just savor this great meal, and you cook it and it looks great and it's so beautiful. You find yourself taking Instagram photos and sharing with your friends, hashtag Steak Nation, big shout out to my man up there, Mr. Paul. And the whole while, the Steak King, he's writing back. He's like, looks great, man. It's awesome. I can't believe it. Enjoy. And you take that first bite, and there is that moment where you're like, and then you want another bite. And you're like, and then you just keep biting, and before you know it, you're tearing through the steak. I mean, like a madman. Okay. The same is true with Orange is the New Black, the final season. I was gonna savor it. I watched the first episode and I hit pause at the end of it, and I was like, "Wow, that was a good first episode of the last season." Like I feel good with this. I feel like they've done a good job. I feel like they've taken their time and wrote a good story here. And I'm curious how this is gonna go. And I was like, I'll just hit play and watch one more. Because let's face it. Once you start watching this is a binge-worthy show. This is how the show was created. And episode after episode, I found myself just going, yeah, one more. Yeah, one more. Yeah, I got time. I can watch one more. Go ahead, watch one more. And I literally watched almost every episode in a day. I'm not proud of that. I'm just saying. That Saturday, after I recorded this podcast and published it, the next morning I woke up and thought, okay, I'll watch this today. And I watched a lot of it. I watched all but the last 2 episodes. And the last 2 episodes I watched after work on Monday. I burned through 13 episodes. Now listen, it takes a commitment to sit down and watch that much TV. But I did it. I'm not proud of it, but I did it. Now, that's not to say that I didn't do other things. I did plenty of other things, including work, 14 hours on Monday. But, you sort of... You kind of make concessions and you pay the price wherever you have to sometimes for things that you want to do. It's like at church, I heard my pastor say one time that he always schedules things to do, and there's always time to do this and time to do that. And he said, but you make time for the things you want to do. He said, for me, I know that golfing is something that I'm passionate about. I love to play golf. He said, I'll have 100 things to do in a day, and somebody will call, hey, you want to go play golf? He said, and I'll move all kinds of things around to go play golf because I like playing golf that much. He said, you know, you tend to nurture the things that you want, and this is no different. So I had the opportunity, I was available to, and I enjoyed the show. It was good. Everybody did a good job. I thought the writers did a good job. I thought the actresses did a good job. Everybody did good. And this is not a happy, everybody had a happy ending kind of show. Some people had a bad rap. Some people, just like real life, didn't have things go their way. Sometimes, you know, there's a mom and daughter scene where the mom is in jail and she's in jail with her daughter. Her daughter gets pregnant and has a kid, and the mom still got kids on the outside, and she's trying to get out, and the daughter, you know, gets into selling drugs in prison, and the mom and daughter team up at a certain point to sell drugs because they're moving it, you know, with the help of a guard that the mom is seeing, and then everything kind of blows up, and at a certain point the daughter finds out a way to use the sister to move drugs, and the mom finds out about it, and they're confronted with conflict, and, you know, listen, craziness happens. There's craziness in that show, and there's craziness in real prison. I mean, this is a real type scenario of what could go on. Now, granted, this is a show. This is all based on someone's idea, and they've probably interviewed a lot of people from prison and asked them their experiences, and probably wrote about a few of the stories. But, you know, like anything else, you tend to take some liberties with creating a show. And this is no different. They tended to spend a lot of time in the last season, spoiler if you haven't watched it, they tended to spend a lot of time in this last season to address the influx of our current administration dealing with illegal immigrants, what they call ICE, which I don't exactly understand what ICE stands for. Immigration something something, has to do with exporting people who don't belong in the country or are here illegally, and how the process is really screwed up and it's really hurting people who are trying to do the right thing. There are people taking advantage of it, but, you know, there's people doing the wrong thing. Now, they spend a lot of time to show you the other side of it and introduce you to some characters that you really care for, that you realize are legitimate, based on people that are struggling, that are trying to do the right thing. And it works out for some and it doesn't work out for others. And that is the reality of the show, of it kind of reflecting what we're going through in today's politics. Now, there's a lot of people right now on the whole political thing because the Democratic, debates have started. And for those of you who don't know, I'm all for Tulsi Gabbard so far. I think she is the top candidate that's running, and I'm registered as an independent voter. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. When I got to register back in whatever it was, 1992, I think is when I turned 18. They said, "What do you want to register as? Independent, Democrat, Republican, or independent?" I said, "Those are my three choices." And I said, "Independent." And I don't want to side myself with someone and have to vote whatever they say forever, because I'm my own person. I have my own thoughts. I have my own beliefs. I have my own judgments. I want to be able to question things. I live in a generation that was taught to question things. When people give you a line of hooey, you're supposed to say, "Hey, wait a second. I don't quite understand what you're saying here, or what you're saying don't jive." You're supposed to ask those questions and find out more information and continue on from there. So, as an independent voter, I have at times voted for Democrats, and at times I voted for Libertarians, and at times I voted for Green Party, and at times I voted for Republicans. And I'll be honest, during this last election, I voted for Donald Trump. And I've talked about that on this podcast many times before. I was not going to vote for Hillary. I think she should have gone to jail for all the things that she did. And it was criminal for her to run. I mean, granted, Donald wasn't my number one choice, but I wanted to vote for him just so she wouldn't be president, because that was going to set us back so much further. Now, since he's been president, he's been very polarizing and very verbal and very argumentative. in a lot of ways that seems like the ramblings of a crazy man. He's gotten a lot of positive things done, but he's also done a lot of negative things for people. People of this country, people he's supposed to represent. He's very polarizing in a way that I think is detrimental to this country. I like what he has to say when it comes to getting things done. I like his business mind of, if you can't do the job, I'll hire somebody who can. I like that as a mantra. I would like that in a candidate. I would also like someone who listens to people, because you're supposed to be representing people. You're supposed to be the representative of this country, of its people. And I don't think he has the ability to listen. Or if he does, he really does a poor job of showing it. Now, right now, there is a Democrat that's running, Congresswoman from Hawaii. Her name is Tulsi Gabbard. That's spelled Tulsigabbard. She is impressive. I first heard about her on Joe Rogan's podcast. She came on and did a discussion with him. That'll be an easy one to find if you want to look it up. I can look it up. I'm not going to be that lazy. Hang on, let me get my phone here and flip through. I think I actually saved it as a podcast. I did. Okay, so it came out May 13th. You can probably look this up on the internet. Episode 1295. Tulsi Gabbard, 2020 presidential candidate of the Democratic Party, is currently serving in the U.S. Representatives for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District since 2013. She's also been serving in the military in the National Guard for the last 16 years. She said that when she saw 9/11 happen, she thought, I want to serve my country. I want to figure out what I got to do to be part of this, because her whole belief came from being a Hawaiian, and that is service over self. She's mentioned many times, it's not about me. Joe asked her on the podcast, why do you want to be president? She said, I don't. But I believe in service over self, and I believe that people need a representative who's going to do what's right for them. And she's right. The role of being president is a huge ego thing. A lot of people, will say out loud, I want to be the president. I want to do this. I want to do that. And Joe asked her, why do you want to be president? I don't. But I believe in service over self, and I believe that I am the right candidate. I believe that I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to help people. And if this is the way I'm meant to help people, then okay, I'll do it. She's completely funded by people giving donations, not by the DNC, not by corporations. People donate to her on her website. And she's running completely off the books. No one's giving her a chance. Even Google tried to block her from being able to be searched. She was the #1 candidate searched after the last debate. 88% of all of their searches of the candidates were about her. And Google blocked the search for her name. Now, all of that came out in the public this last week under a huge stink. And now there's a $50 million lawsuit against Google for doing so. Why, if you're the top search engine, would you block a presidential candidate from being searched? You're holding information. Why would you stifle that information? What is your purpose? It makes me think, who is Google backing? Who is their champion? Who's the one that they're like, no, we want you to look for this person, not that person. You're the person doing all the things that we ask, all the things that we want. Someone who's altruistic, someone who is trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. And Google's like, nah. Someone at Google, not Google as a whole, but someone at Google decided, nah, I don't even want people to be able to look you up. I'm going to block you. Well, here's my call to action to you, the listener, the watcher. If you're watching me on YouTube or if you're listening to me on the podcast, do some research, look her up. Tulsi Gabbard. Get comfortable saying her name. It's going to be in the public. She's got billboards up and down I-95 and I-20. I see it right around my town. She can be our first female president. With your help. With my help. I want to hear her debate people. She's serving in our military currently, 16 years in. She is currently a congresswoman. And she could be president. So let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about stuff I heard. Because this is the Stuff I Heard podcast. Hosted by Joshua Peak. Alright, so today while I was out messing around with that project in the garage again, I know you guys are sick and tired of me talking about that. I got out there this morning and put some clear urethane on that cedar, outdoor cedar couch. This morning, while I was doing it, I listened to a recent episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Episode 1328 came out, yesterday, I think? Yeah, yesterday, with Whitney Cummings. She's a stand-up comedian, actress, writer, and producer. She has a new special on Netflix called Can I Touch It? And she's hilarious. She apparently bought a replica animatronic type high-end sex doll head that looks like her head. And she talks about how, on the podcast, she brings it in and her and Joe mess around with it a little bit, talking to it, and it talks back, and it's really creepy. But she talks about how badly she feels for men, and she's like, I'm going to get a lot of crap on this after this special because people are going to come out, feminists are going to come out and say that I'm, supporting men too much and talking about how horrible it is for them. I haven't seen her special yet. I'm going to today. Probably I'll talk about it during the next episode. But, Whitney's a very thoughtful person. She's a very smart person. She's very pro-animal. But don't let her fool you. She's very pro-people, too. She likes studying people and figuring out how people work and how their brains work. I've mentioned on here also a movie that she did called The Female Brain that was on Hulu. You can find it still. Good movie. Got a lot of good information. A lot of interesting facts that people don't normally think about in relationships and how men and women tend to problem solve and how to figure each other out and navigate each other in their daily life. But this is a good podcast. They have fun. They're friends. And they talk about all kind of silliness as well as play around with this doll a little bit. And they have a good back and forth. And, she's ultimately on there to bring focus towards her Netflix special. So, check it out. Should be good. I am a big Whitney fan. I am currently listening to Joe interview Maynard James Keenan, who is the lead singer, songwriter, producer, winemaker. He has bands called Tool and one called Pussifier. I never heard of that one. And one called Perfect Circle. He is the lead singer. He's a very smart guy, very, very articulate. Joe calls him his favorite farmer because Maynard has a winery. He grows grapes and makes his own wine. He's also talking about other venues that he's doing, growing things and whatnot. And they get into jiu-jitsu a little bit, talk about jiu-jitsu. Apparently Maynard also does that. I'm very far into that episode too. That's a good one. It's a fun hang. It's fun to listen to guys who are accomplishing things discuss, not just guys, but guys and girls. People who go after things and accomplish things. It's interesting to hear them talk about their goals and the things that they're doing and how they've learned to do it. That's one of the things that Adam Carolla talked about is he said, if you're not happy with your life, take a moment and look around at your friends. If your friends are losers, then you're a loser. If you make better friends, they're going to pull you forward. He said at a certain point, I was friends with a bunch of burners that I grew up with who just did drugs and hung around and did nothing with their life. They'd work as little as possible and they'd drink and they'd get high and that kind of stuff. And he said, at a certain point I realized I needed to make better friends. He said, one of the things I've learned is successful people will share with you all of their information about how they succeeded, what worked and what didn't work. And he's like, I made friends with successful people, and they helped me succeed. And as life goes on, I come into contact with other people who want to be friends, and I help them succeed. I have information to give. I'm willing to give it. And that's how we're supposed to do this. That's what this internet thing is supposed to be about, us sharing information with each other and helping each other figure out how to succeed. I mean, before this, we all had to just, figure it out on our own and make mistakes, and it would take us longer to get to a place where we were successful. Now, literally, children can get online, they can download podcasts, they can watch videos, they can go, how do I do this? And they can learn. You can learn. I can learn. We all can learn. If I need to learn how to speak Portuguese, I can go online and I can learn how to speak Portuguese just by looking it up, following instructions, and going along with it. If I need to learn how to play the banjo, I can go online and type in R peak and cloth style banjo picking, and he can show me how to do it. I mean, there's people that'll teach you how to do just about anything online. My thing right now is woodworking. I find myself going on different woodworking pages and them showing them how they're making these incredible designed things out of wood, and I'm like, golly, that's just, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of building things that way, and it totally makes sense. It's a usable thing that you can learn. Any monkey can learn to do things, but you gotta want to. So anyway, I listened to a recent episode of Dr. Drew After Dark. He's got an interview with a few people that I don't know. I went through them. I was like, I don't know them. I don't care. Jimmy O Yang, he did an interview with, episode 22. He's apparently the star of Crazy Rich Asians and Silicon Valley, or a star in those two shows and movies. Now that I'm reading Silicon Valley, I'm thinking he's Yao, I think is the guy's name. Yin. I don't remember. Anyway, I don't care. The next one is Taylor Williamson. Comedy got him into the final round of America's Got Talent. Yeah, I don't care. Don't know him. But I do know the one that came out this past Thursday, episode 24, with Doug Benson. Doug Benson has several podcasts and YouTube things online. He's got one called Getting Doug with High, which is basically him getting high with celebrities and asking them questions along the way. He's got one called Doug Loves Movies, which is a game show that he plays with comedians and actors and directors and writers and stuff like that. And it's usually done with a crowd, and it's a lot of fun. And I've listened to thousands. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. Hundreds. I've listened to hundreds of Doug Loves Movies. That was one of my favorite things to listen to whenever I drove long distances, because it was a game show. In the first half of the show, they're just introducing each other and having fun with the crowd, and he's hosting it and having a little back and forth, kind of thing. And the second half of the show is the game, which is sort of like the Leonard Maltin game. He asks questions and they have to guess what the movie is, or he'll say the movie and they have to guess the actors. There's all kinds of revelations of this, of what they could do. But basically, him and Sarah Silverman and a few other comedians came up with this game and have been playing it for years, and then he decided, oh wait, I can actually make this work. It's a great podcast to listen to. I don't know if they make a YouTube, but it's really fun. Anyway, he had one called Doug Loves Movies, or Doug Loves Minis, and it was like little miniature snippets of thoughts and conversations and whatnot. And him and Bert Kreischer are buddies, and Bert used to call in and used to leave voicemails to Doug about his dreams. He was having these crazy dreams. When he did Travel Channel, he would have to go to Africa or South America, and they would give him malaria pills, and it would give him really psychotic dreams. And he would freak out in the middle of the night when he woke up, and he'd call Doug Benson's voicemail, and he would leave these crazy voicemails about his dreams. And they were really fantastical and odd. And Bert's talked about a few of them on stage, and he's talked about a few of them on podcasts, but it's really hilarious. Anyway, so check out Doug Benson on Dr. Drew After Dark. It's a fun hang. Doug did a movie years ago called Super High Me, and he talks about, with Dr. Drew, he talks about his like getting into smoking weed late in his 20s and sort of getting into that culture and that lifestyle and what he's done with it since. So it's pretty interesting. He's a pretty interesting guy. But anywho, I'm going to wrap this up. We're about 26 minutes in or so. My wife has an interview today with a company she's hoping to get hired with. And so, if you're listening to this, say a little prayer for her. Hope everything goes well. There's lots of activity going on with my friends and people losing their jobs lately. The economy seems to be doing better in a lot of ways, but then it affects people close to me, and I realize that maybe it's a different. Maybe I'm seeing a different version of it because I'm a white male and everything's coming up aces for Josh. I mean, I don't know. Listen, we can all heal. We can all learn from each other. We can all help each other. And I believe that every time God closes a door, another one opens, and it's usually a better one. So let's promote the positive. I had lunch today with my mom at King Jefe Taco. If you're ever in Florence, please type them into your GPS and go check them out for lunch or dinner. It's KingJefe, and they are downtown. They have a free parking structure next door, or there's plenty of parking around the street, around the corner. We order off the menu. My mom and I, one of the owners, Kyle Hardee, he came up with a creation now that's our favorite thing to eat. It's the Cali-bowl, but cheeseburger style. It's got ground beef, cheese, lettuce, tomato, pickles, and bacon with a sauce, some kind of sauce. I don't even know what it is. And then we get a side of guacamole. It's keto friendly. It's delicious. It is filling. It's everything I want. It's a little bit. I add a little bit of extra salt and a little bit of tomatillo. It's good stuff. Really good stuff. Appreciate it, Kyle. You're doing a great job, buddy. You, Travis, and Steve, y'all are doing an awesome job. They have a new pizza place opening up here in Florence called Pizza Mio, and it's going to be across the street from West Florence High School, next to the Walmart. Should be a big hit. It's going to be great, and I'm probably going to have him on here to talk about it. So, Kyle, if you're listening to this, reach out, brother. I want to have you on so you can talk about the business. Hopefully, we can get some buzz going, and we'll make it happen, man. I like what you guys are doing. So, everybody take care. Thanks for listening, and this is the part where I'm supposed to say, cue the cow. Moo. All right, everybody. That's it. Thanks for listening. Y'all take care.